Yes, everyone, welcome back to the Irish Hotspur. International break has begun, but Spurs, they have not left us in the best of moods after international break. A very crushing defeat, a very 2 degrees. Some people are saying it was expected because we're Spurs fans and we've been through this before. I think, in the moment, it's not like Dave or I really expected it. We were flying high, happy clapping, found ourselves in a wonderful 2-0 lead. Thought we were going to be riding home into the international break with 6 wins in a row there. And unfortunately, we just couldn't do it. We just couldn't see it over the line. Felt like maybe the players, which will probably be brought up plenty of times in this Twitter Reacts, felt like the players sort of gave up or sort of wanted to cruise their way to a win. And we got caught out for it. We got absolutely punished for it by Brighton. And fair play to them for that, but really just a not a great result for us to go into to this international break with. So if you can for us, everybody, smash the like button, get into the comments. Let us know. This is going to be probably the final Twitter Reacts live stream before we make the final decision on whether you guys prefer it as a pre-record or as a live stream. Like I said before, depending on maybe availability or just sort of convenience sake, it might still have sort of a balance between sometimes they'll be pre-recorded versus sometimes they'll be live. But I think we do want to try to figure out what is the one or the preferred format that you guys have in mind, the one that you guys might prefer, and then we'll roll with that to the best of our ability from here on out. But Dave, before we descend into the Twitter reacts, we already have Phil Moss in the house. Good to see you, Phil. Reeman's son, Peter Elsie. It's not a good one, Dave. I think we got some good humor in here. Got a good mix of also kind of analysis after the game as well. So should be a good mix, good healthy mix of Spurs content here. But
Mm.
just not an easy one to take after yesterday.
Do you know what, Jack? I'm still sore and bitter over it today, to be brutally honest. I woke up in a bad mood. It's just still scratching my head. How do we let that happen? It was such a tale of two halves when you look back on the game. First half, we were cruising. Looked like we were cruising into the sunset, Jack, Hotel California on in the background, you know what I mean? And, second half we came out and I'm not being funny, but as soon as we sort of made that mistake with Doji, I think everyone sort of smelled trouble. And I was listening to Talk Sport last night, and I was listening to Spurs fans ringing in, going mad about the manager and stuff. But I think Alan Pardew hit the nail on the head. And the former manager himself, he says, look, sometimes, you're cruising that much, you just come out and the players are just, the players got too arrogant, too cocky. And, once you concede one, especially earlier on, it's very hard to get yourself out of that sort of rut. So I think that's sort of what happened yesterday. And then followed by Ange Postecoglou not recognising the signs, and it's sort of, that's why we sit here today with a sour puss on our face heading into the international break. And the reality is, we shouldn't be too down. We're after winning five on the bounce, before that. But this one's sour because it was in our hands.
Yeah, it definitely is sour because it was in our hands. I definitely agree with that. It just feels like it was just a really good performance, from the get-go, but then just didn't want to finish that good performance, I guess, the players. Maybe they thought they could already kind of put on the flip-flops, head on vacation or head on to international break with their respective national teams, and they kind of just didn't see the game through. They just didn't want to basically finish the job, I guess, in the same manner that they started the job. But Phil Moss saying Ange Postecoglou could well be the worst manager we've had for years. He said 50%. He has 50% so right and 50% so wrong. And we are stuck in it like he is a stubborn MFO. And he also Reeman's son, big up Jack and Dave, Peter Halsey saying Ange is not good enough. Nice guy, but out of his depth. Michelle Gain saying Ange is so out of his depth. K32 saying hello, Dave and Jack. Hope you are well. Still gutted about Spurs. It just shows how fragile we are that that hasn't changed at all. Fragility is definitely part of Tottenham Hotspur's name. That's for sure. K32, and especially us as Spurs fans. Wemberley saying, "Afternoon, boys. I knew that at halftime we had to get the next goal. When they score within 3 minutes of the restart, what happened then was almost
Yeah.
inevitable with our catastrophic lack of leadership. There was a lack of leadership, and we've been here before. When it comes to situations like this, you want someone to stand up, hold each other accountable, be that sort of leader in these difficult situations. But it's not like it's insurmountable or anything. But we act like it is, and it's
Yeah.
down to the leadership sometimes. Ash P saying an entire 2 weeks of Ange out is worse than the loss, honestly. It definitely probably Ash. And hopefully get to hear you on the fan show sometime this week as well. Big Pants saying Welbeck and Vardy can still score against our defense. Who teaches them how to defend? I mean, fair play to Welbeck and Vardy continuing their career up until this point. Definitely some real legends in order to still be playing at this type of level. 3 losses, Dave. It's been shocking, says Reeman's son. Scott Hynam says, "Big up to all. Come on, you Spurs." Wembley saying exactly whatever players have to be cocky about. Absolutely nothing, actually. Yeah, that's the other thing. I mean, what are they thinking that they can cruise, after only what, winning 5 games, with maybe a bit of a shaky start? You think they would have the professionalism to see the game out and just get the win and move on and go into this international break with a nice high, with a nice bit of momentum. But in fact, they kind of almost ruined all the momentum that they just built there. And we'll see if they can build it up again when they return back from international break. Too darn soulful saying very naive from Ange and the players. In my view, you cannot take your foot off the gas in this league. Brighton are a decent side with an above average manager. Learn from Ange and fix it. I think Ange more or less said that, actually, too darn soulful, that it felt like he said about his own players, even a 2 degree about himself, that they were naive to take their foot off the gas. And he says, in order for us to win the games in the manner that we like to win games, we can't take our foot off the gas. And he more or less said that. So that's just down to him and it's down to the
Mm.
players, and they need to correct that for next time. Ella's in
Well,
here as well, sick of going to international break on a defeat. That it gets brought up plenty of times in this Twitter reaction. Don't
mm,
you worry. Ella, good to see Ilmatic as well. And then Joe 27.
but
Dave, anything you want to say maybe from the comments here, or
yeah,
should we just get this going?
yeah, no, just quickly on a couple of comments that you read out there. The problem I have is the players have absolutely no reason to be getting carried away or too cocky. They won 5 on the bounce. The momentum was high, the confidence was high. They slapped United up, and they slapped Brighton up for the first half, the first 45 minutes. Um, but this is why they're never going to win anything unless they learn from these sort of lessons. Because they thought they could just go into cruise control and get over the line. You don't. At this level, you've got to fight every inch, every ball. To be able to be able to be the greatest. And I think that's something they have to learn at Tottenham Hotspur. But also, Ange Postecoglou, I think his whole ethos is about trusting his players, which to a large degree works. Look at Brennan Johnson; it's worked out
Yeah.
for him. But in the other areas, Werner, it hasn't worked out. Not making the substitute, leaving it too late to make
Yeah.
the substitutions yesterday, and that's all based off him having the trust in the players. Going, I think they'll put it right. I think they'll get it together. Someone's going to get it together there for me, and it didn't happen. And I
Yeah.
think Ange Postecoglou, I think now needs to sort of realise over this international break that there's one thing trusting the players, but every once in a while you have to be able to dish out a grilling. You have to be able to pull a player off the pitch to make a statement to everybody else. It
Yeah.
works two ways. If they're going to let you down, you got to make a reaction to it.
Yeah, that's really well put, Dave. It's almost like it's his biggest strength and one of his biggest
Yeah,
weaknesses is his loyalty and his faith to his players, where he's not going to throw them under the bus. In fact, that's his whole thing, is that he just doesn't believe in that type of strategy of kind of making the players feel uncomfortable. He wants them to be in the best environment possible in order to thrive, and he wants to show them the utmost faith and support. But
yeah,
when things aren't looking good and when things are starting to turn, you kind of do maybe have to change and be a bit more of a disciplinarian or more of
mhm,
a hard man, in these situations, someone that isn't, maybe likable, someone that isn't necessarily, the most, let's say, friendly person in the room, in these situations. You do have to kind of be that guy that can hold people accountable, can be that type of disciplinarian in these situations. And I just don't know if Ange necessarily has that, or at least he doesn't want to channel that energy as much as he might need to in situations like this. That's a very good point, actually. His loyalty is his biggest strength and his biggest weakness by the looks of things. Luke at GHFC, let's get into it, though. Everybody, if you can, smash the like button. Do get into the comments. Feel free to stop us at any stage if you would like, with a question or a comment or an opinion. And you also, as well, if you wanted to support the channel in an extra way, feel free to become a member as well. We'd be very appreciative of that. But Luca THFC saying we're 0-4 in the last 4 matches before the national team breaks. And it seems like it's becoming quite common for Spurs fans to feel pretty defeated before an international break. I'm not sure why it is, but you even look at the record, which we'll have a tweet to show later. But the record actually for Spurs games before international breaks really is not too good. Harry saying not the only crumble at the Amex today.
do you know what, Jack? That one made me giggle, but also hurt me at the same time,
Yeah,
if you know what I
there
mean.
are a few of
Because
these.
it's funny, but it's about us, and it's
Yeah,
perfect way to describe. What hit home is I always have that Arsenal crumble meme, ready to post whenever they bottle it, and it's sort of came home to bite me yesterday.
Yeah, and, even, in the title I wrote today, which is a common joke in this one, was that everyone saw it coming as well, which I just decided to, title the stream as Davina saying death taxes and poor results before an international break. Yep, it seems to be the constants with Spurs, part of the principles of being a Spurs fan. Jay Andrew saying at 2-2, we had to make changes. Udogi had to come off. We have to change something in midfield. Poor in-game management from Ange today. Not every time the players on the pitch can sort it out themselves. The players acted like the game was done, deserved to get dunked on, rocks for brains. I mean, is that probably what you were sort of alluding to, Dave? That in situations like this, and he sort of gives the players the benefit of the doubt that they can kind of resolve it themselves, that they can pick themselves up, that they can channel the same energy that they showed in the first half. But sadly, not always the case that the players can do that. Maybe you do have to step in as the manager and kind of just put your foot down and try to influence it in the best way you can without obviously putting on a shirt and a pair of boots.
And look, I think if anyone takes their mind back to when Postecoglou first came in, it was one of the big noticeable things about Postecoglou's tenure, that was highlighted when he first walked in here, that it was going to be different to managers that we had in the past, that he more or less lets the dressing room police itself. He doesn't really get involved too much in that. Um, whereas Conte and Jose Mourinho were constantly in and on the dressing room and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And, you know, he likes to place his trust in the players, but I think sometimes Postecoglou maybe has to realize that they're human beings. Sometimes, in life when things are going well and you get too comfortable, you hit cruise control, and sometimes it's hard to wake yourself up and shake yourself out of it. And I think at times like that, this is where Postecoglou needs to be clever, realize it. Doesn't matter who it is on the football pitch, haul them off, get another guy on, and sometimes that can send out that statement here because we're walking into a result. Um, And I think that's one area where Postecoglou needs to realise, and he doesn't have to fall out with players by it. He could just turn around and say, look, you're a human being, it happens, but I had to make this substitution today, and I hope you understand why. And sort of just a message to them to stay on it as well. I think, it can be done in a harmonious way without having to fall out or alienate or bollock anybody. And I think that's one thing Postecoglou has to learn. You can't put all your trust in players because eventually they're going to let you down at some point. At some point they're looking for that leadership. They're looking for you to grab the reins and guide them. And I think that's basically what I'm trying to say, Jack.
No, well said. Ilmatic saying Spurs players have shown their Spursy mentality to almost all the managers we've had in the last 25 years. We need to rip this out of our culture. I think that's well put. Everyone saw it coming because everyone knows the weak mentality this club has, says Nicola. Kulu's elusive right foot says we've got our Tottenham back. JHM saying glads we are back to being absolutely shit. I don't know about that, but it was definitely a bad day. Jay Daniel Field say I just want to forget about that game. What a waste. Yeah, same here, Daniel. We're going to try to get through this as best we can. So hold on tight, please. We have Star saying, honestly, he's kind of funny. Like, how are you managing to out diva the diva queen himself, James Madison? I mean, this Joel Veltman moment was really just shameless. And I hope I saved this tweet, but I might as well ruin the joke for a future tweet. But when there's a video of this, Dave, and someone wrote the game is gone.
Do you know what, Jack? I honestly, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Any Hollywood agent, tuning in there, that's Fatman's acting career gone. It was absolutely embarrassing. Look, he's nowhere near him. It's so embarrassing. The game is finished when you're seeing this. To be honest with you, Basuma got sent off for something a lot less than that. That's so blatant, so obvious. He should go. He should have got red card.
He could have gotten a yellow for that flop indeed. Ron answering Gus when he says, "I want to know what happened in the dressing room at halftime."
I mean, do you know what? I would more pull out that conscious Shao meme with the cigar in his mouth, Jack. I think that's probably more appropriate for
Yeah,
this one.
they were celebrating too early, twerking too early in the case of Basuma. No context Tottenham. This is what made the thumbnail. I thought this was very funny.
Yeah, do you know what? Yeah, if I'm Postecoglou, he could have easily used that as an excuse to fly off the handle like that yesterday.
Yeah, I wouldn't have blamed him really. Harry saying, "What goes through Timo Werner's head when he's one on one? If chickens have two legs, why do we drink cold water?" This has broke the internet from last night. To Victor Boniface, he for some reason tweeted. He for some reason tweeted this. I have no idea what it means. I don't know what prompted Victor Boniface in order to tweet this, But that's a great one from Harry. What goes through Timo Werner's head when he's in the one-on-ones? I think that is
Oh, that's
probably
class.
something close. Joe's saying somehow Joker 2 wasn't the worst effing thing I had to watch this week. Simon Humane saying, I found those three missed opportunities very frustrating. I did as well. And, probably was I think it was a bit of a controversial opinion because I think the attention should be more on the mentality or lack of mentality that we showed in that second half. But I did say to Dave during the watch along, kind of during our post match rants and whatnot, that I did feel like, despite the collapse of mentality in the second half,
Mm,
we still had chances that we wasted in that first half that could have given us probably even more of a cushion, even if we were to lose our heads, even if it were to get sketchy in kind of the second half. There were probably two or
mm,
three other chances that we could have put away. We could have actually, in my opinion, could have easily been 3-0 up, 4-0 up at halftime. And who's to say then, maybe we would have taken our foot off the gas. But when you're 3 goals, 4 goals ahead, makes it a lot harder for the opposition to get any sort of motivation that they're going to get back into the game. And so I
mm.
think
I
that's
think
something that just continues to be a frustration for me is Spurs, they're starting to score the goals, but are they really still that clinical? I wouldn't say so.
No, look, I think you're absolutely spot on. I do think the biggest highlight from yesterday's game should be the mentality because even though we did miss chances, we were still 2-0 up with 45 minutes to go away from home, and you should never ever let that fall. We've done enough at the end of the day to get ourselves on the score sheet and give ourselves a little bit of a cushion. And I do think the mentality should be the biggest thing pulled out because you can't collapse like that. If you want to go on and win things, you can never let
Yeah.
your foot off the gas like that and take it easy the way we did. However, I think the fact that we scored 2 goals away from home is a good thing. But I think, when we're winning games, and we were saying this heading into the game yesterday, the next thing we need to learn going forward is to be ruthless, to be absolute killers, take our opportunities as soon as they come. I mean, we should have been 1-0 up inside 30 seconds. That first one is the one that's unforgivable for me. Werner squaring it to Johnson and absolutely ballooning it across. All you got to do is play that across into his path and let him tap at home. That's the most unforgivable one for me. But I think, look, they're the two lessons we take away, but I think the mentality is the one that needs to be hammered home because if you have better
Yeah.
mentality, you don't get caught.
Yeah, I think the mentality is far more important than actually the missed chances, but it is something that I felt like was still kind of on my mind, after that game. Just ruining those missed
Yeah.
chances felt like, could have given us an even bigger cushion technically. Rudy Toot saying the best chances we missed in the first half were due to guess who? Well, a certain Timo. A regular gamer saying belated greetings. Good to see you, a regular gamer. Hopefully you're keeping well. Just who we
Mm.
are, mate, says Daniel Huang. Matt Bynum says we will bounce back from this, just praying no injuries during the international break. That's a fair thought there, Matt. Fat Tony as well. Good to see Fat Tony saying had to go to a wedding after the game yesterday. Took my frustrations out on the open bar. Well, take it out on the dance floor as well. Fat Tony, if you ever had the encouragement or the influence to do that, but definitely wouldn't blame you for wanting to have a good night and just sort of take your minds off of things after a
Yeah.
few beers. Let's get into this a little bit deeper, though. We found Cho saying, Brendan Johnson, I have a challenge for you. Brendan, to Jamie Vardy's record of 11. He's on 6 at the moment in time. Jake saying, you haven't been a Spurs fan for long if you didn't think they'd leave us to dwell on a horrible performance before an
Yeah.
international break, no matter how good our recent form has been. A lot of people have sort of suggested that, Dave, like a lot of seasoned, experienced Spurs fans. It's almost like they saw this coming, actually, right before the international break.
Yeah, look, we're sort of well used to it right now, and it just becomes really frustrating, and it sort of becomes numbing because you're just like, just at the pivotal point, you're like, right, Tottenham, kick on, pivotal point for the project. You kick on, we're going to go on and do some great things, and they just let you down. It's just all the time, and I'm fed up of it.
And then also THFC Tyrese saying Brennan Johnson has now scored 6 goals in 6 games in a row for Tottenham. It's just glorious to see. And it's he's quote tweeting his own prophecy from before of Brennan Johnson will begin a 10-game goal scoring streak. The prophecy continues. Ali Campbell says, who would have foreseen this? 60,000 Tottenham fans stare directly into the camera. uh,
It hurts, Jack. It hurts, man.
I forget who it was. There was someone at halftime, I think, on BBC or Sky Sports that sort of said, like, "Oh, who could have saw this coming?" Like, everybody's responded with saying every single Spurs fan saw this coming. Rico, controversial opinion. We have played exceptionally well in every league game so far this season. Even in our drop points against Leicester, Newcastle, and Arsenal and Brighton, there were spells of unbelievably brilliant, dominant football from us. Tell me I'm wrong. Dave, is he wrong? I don't think he
No,
necessarily is. Like, we have had brilliant spells of football in every single game, but that's the thing is that we, like you brought up earlier, are not ruthless enough when it comes to burying our chances and also seeing games out. And we do leave ourselves in kind of the balance where the game could be stolen away from us despite us being the better team. We're just not killers.
no, we're not. And do you know what it is for me, Jack? It's sort of like he's spot on. Like we've played well every single game, but you can almost make the case for parcel a lot of the games last year where we sort of dominated possession, but we just didn't go and kill teams off. And I think the biggest thing that when you look at especially this season in isolation, it's our mentality. That's the biggest problem. The football is there, the style is there, but that mentality, to get over the line is not there. That mentality in front of goal to be absolute killers is not there. And that's the biggest thing that Postecoglou is trying to battle to change. If he can change that, we won't be having these conversations for too much longer. Pochettino was able to change it to a large degree. And it's something that Postecoglou is wrestling with, trying to challenge. Like you look at the Newcastle game, a better mentality there. You go and win that game, the Arsenal game, a better
Yeah.
mentality, you get a point out of it. The Leicester game, better mentality, you get over the line in that game. Some of the points we've dropped this season are so silly, and I think that's where the biggest frustrations come into Spurs fans is just we're not being outplayed, we're not being dominated. We're just shooting ourselves in the foot. And I think because we shoot ourselves in the foot so much, that's where the questions then fall on Ange Postecoglou and his tactics and stuff like that. But I think, where I'm at with it is I do back Ange if the club and the Spurs fans can give him the patience he needs. I back him to be able to change this in the long run for Tottenham Hotspur. But we've got some easy games out of the way that we've dropped points in that we shouldn't.
Yeah.
We've been in good positions in big games where we've dropped points that we shouldn't. We've got a lot harder tests to come between now
Yeah.
and December. They better get that mentality change very, very quickly. Maybe that Brighton defeat was a blessing in disguise coming into them big games. That might keep them switched on for a little run
Yeah.
across them. Let's wait and see. But if they don't get that mentality change,
Yeah.
maybe them sacked by Christmas might start coming out again.
Well, it's just his if the players' heads got too big during that 5-game winning run because they were playing
Mm,
so well and the results started kind of coming to them pretty easily because they were playing so well. It could be the case that once they found themselves 2-0 up at Brighton, they really were convinced, you know what, lads, we're just saucing right now. No need to even, try anymore. We're just going to cruise to the win here. And we got absolutely punished for that mentality. And maybe we're going to get, kind of a bit of a lesson learned here, or, kind of take a point from this, take a lesson from this. And that could hopefully in the long run benefit us down the road. But, that's only the
yeah,
hopium and the optimism that you can take is
yeah.
that this could be taken as a big lesson learned. Berbatov's halftime smoke has hit the chat. Good to see you. He's saying late, boys. I'm sorry, but have you discussed Ange's quote? I'm not sure if we have any Ange quotes in here, but if you want to, let
We
us
can
know in
go
the
and dig
chat,
them up for you
Berbatov.
if you want.
Say that again. Sorry, Dave.
I'll go and dig them up for them if you. At the end, we'll try and get it up, Berbatov. Let us know what one you're
Yeah,
referring to,
let,
and
let
that
us know
will be
which
great.
one you can find, and we'd be happy to look it up. You can also put it in the chat, and we can have a good discussion on it as well, Berbatov, if you would be so kind. Sebastian MF SF saying this is what Tottenham does. Nothing surprising. Peter Simon saying worst start since Ramos. Daniel Field saying we bottled and got cocky. Rob Frank saying how can you say we played well in every game when we have zero big chances in some games? I'd be surprised if we had zero big chances in some games. And then if that's the case, according to the stats, then I wouldn't necessarily believe a lot of those stats because I look at the Leicester City game. I think there were exceptional chances. I think I look at the Newcastle game. I mean, there was literally almost wide open nets in the case of Wilson Odebear. He missed an open net in that game. And you look at even the Arsenal game where there was definitely a few pretty easy chances that Spurs should have been able to do better with. My thing is that I've said this before, Rob, and you might disagree with me on this, but I think Spurs are actually so wasteful that they find themselves with good opportunities to create an exceptional chance that should probably lead to a goal, but we've actually wasted it so poorly at times that it doesn't probably even register as a chance because the move just breaks down well before you would expect it to. 3-on-2s, 4-on-1s type situations that we just completely ruin, or times when we win the ball really high up the pitch and we just don't take any advantage of that, real estate or that situation. And I think sometimes then that might register as a zero big chance. But pretty sure we have, big chances in almost every single game. A regular gamer saying, can you coach mentality? I don't think so. Personally, you have to get a core of players that are scrappers and fighters, not enough personality types. In my honest opinion, that's probably fair when it comes to some of this team. We also have
Mm.
Ricky Nato saying, Evening Brothers, we got no leaders and no one who wants to take responsibility and command on the pitch. And saying, still a Spur, though. Come on, you Spurs. Ilmatic saying, and Shed yesterday that was the worst loss since he's been at Spurs and he saw the players being cowardly and hiding. We didn't lose going down fighting and think Ange saw this as the biggest disappointment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did see that quote, and I agree with Ange that this probably was one of the worst defeats that he's had because it's just completely embarrassing from the situation that we found ourselves in. Also, considering the winning run that we were in, just see out the game, get over the line, and just ride out with the positivity and the good performance that you had from that first half, and they just weren't able to do that. And I think that is a huge disappointment. And it felt like, yeah, the players maybe got a bit too big for their heads, or got a bit cocky in the game, and they just weren't able to correct that, and they got punished for it, and probably is one of the worst losses. And he is right that a lot of times when we've been 2-0 down, 3-0 down, you still see a lot of the players still fighting, still trying to push, still trying to press, and that wasn't the case in this game. It did look like a lot of the guys started to give up at one point or another during the game, which is also unacceptable.
But that's a problem though at Tottenham Hotspur. We fight when we're 2 or 3 nil down. That's when we show fight. And don't get me wrong, it's a good thing to show that within you. But we don't show fight when we're in commanding positions of the game to try and hold on to what we have got. And that's my biggest problem with Tottenham Hotspur. They show fight at the wrong times, show fight in that game, get it over the line. Who cares if the second half becomes difficult? Like Bentancur, that cross should never have come in for
Yeah.
one of their goals. He should have just slid in, stayed strong in the tackle. He didn't. He pulled out of the tackle and allowed him to get the ball across. Udogie swinging at the ball. How many times a week does he do that? And he completely hits fresh air this time. Show lack of composure in winning, and then once we concede, all of a sudden the whole mentality drops. Everyone sort of gets that sinking feeling. The fans get it, the manager gets it, the players get it, and it's almost like everyone gets it. Everyone can see it as happening, but no one wants to do anything about it. And it's really annoying. We show fight on the wrong times. Like they'll walk off, say 3-0 down, come back, fight, lose 3-2, and they'll go, we showed fight, grit, determination, togetherness. We done that for the fans. It's like, well, okay. I can accept a bad game in isolation, but what I can't accept is being embarrassed when we're 2-0 up. Come out and show fight then.
Mhm. I think Berbatov's halftime smoke has provided us some of the quotes that maybe he might be confused by or just wants different opinions on. And he's saying, yeah, I could have, but all these things are totally irrelevant to me. Substitutions and all those kinds of things. If you're not competitive, it doesn't matter what you do. You're not going to get rewards. You don't deserve to win. We didn't deserve on our second half performance, irrespective of subs, anything else to get something out of the game. But I think if you do get something, you get falsely rewarded. Tough one with
So
Ange. Sometimes, can I just quickly say with
yeah,
Ange, sometimes I wish, and I've said this before, but not too many times. I think I've only said it in maybe members group chats and things. But I feel like Ange could benefit sometimes from being a bit less honest and truthful and just sort of matter of fact with everything. I think he would benefit sometimes from saying something, for talking for 4 minutes without saying actually anything. And believe me, since I blabber all day, I'm actually to a degree quite good at that sometimes, saying nothing, for 4 minutes without actually saying anything significant. And I think Ant should try to do that and try to mimic maybe what other managers can do, which is, they're asked a question, they sort of beat around the bush of the question for about 4 minutes, just sort of say a bunch of stuff that doesn't really make sense in context to the question. But at the end of the day, you gave them a 3-minute, 4-minute answer that they're just going to have to basically pile through. And I wish Ange kind of did that more often, because I think when he is asked very direct questions, he does answer very truthfully and honestly. And then sometimes it does, I think, come back to bite him, because he can be very emotional. And sometimes those answers where perhaps some of it does look a bit perplexing, like the part where he's saying, like irrespective of subs or anything like that, I don't think we deserved it. And it's like, yeah, you're probably right that we didn't deserve it in the second half. We were awful, but you can make subs and you can try to change the game. Don't act like changing or making subs wouldn't have done anything. And I don't think he I don't think he would disagree with what I just said. I think he definitely
See,
believes that subs change games and that subs do make an impact. But from that quote there that Berbatov's halftime smoke has put there, you would take from the context of the quote that he is basically saying that subs don't mean very much. And that's,
it,
if you get what I'm trying to say, Dave, I wish Ange just sometimes in situations like these just
yeah,
didn't answer so honestly and truthfully. He just sort of does what like a Marco Silva does, which is just sort of talk for 5 minutes without actually saying anything of any kind.
yeah.
And you end up kind of falling asleep, when when listening to it. He could benefit from that, I think.
I think for me, looking at them quotes, I think he used yesterday as a bit of an experiment. I think that's why he left it so long to make them substitutions. By the sounds of it, that he wanted to see what character that his main 11 out there has in the face of adversity, and that he left them out there as long as possible to see if they were going to stand up with the answers, and they didn't. Um, and he's probably of the thinking, if I've got my best players out there and I'm looking at some youngsters coming off the bench, are they going to change the game for me in that scenario when I need my leaders to step up? And I think that's probably what he's trying to get across. However, no excuse. You've got substitutions there. You've got the young guys on the bench. You could have kept some of the older experienced heads around and not relied on some of them if that's what you wanted to do and you wanted to put your foot down in that regard. So you clearly believe in them. So turn to the bench. Don't just sit there and watch it happen. And where I'm more frustrated with it, and I get maybe the experiment that he was trying to conduct yesterday to see, okay, who's really going to step up, grab the team by the scruff of the neck, and really sort of stand up to this adversity and help us get through it. Um,
Yeah.
but he should have known from previous occasions we don't have that. So therefore, if you don't have that, you have to rely on your bench. You have to turn to your bench, and
Yeah.
that's where I'm a little bit frustrated.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said, Dave. A regular gamer saying, very true, Jack, but no one wants Mourinho's or Conte's pressers back. Believe me, I don't either, but I think that's where I think Ange could, every now and again, he doesn't need to do this often, really does not need to do this often, but sometimes you might just save yourself from being scrutinized or being further critiqued or putting further pressure on yourself if you do take a bit of a page out of their book and just sort of answer in a riddle, answer in a puzzle, say something without actually saying anything. And I think you
Mm.
might agree with me on that one, a regular gamer. Ed Sweeting saying when Andrews criticized, he often doubles down and won't admit to any failings in the approach. I think he's a proud man and he's someone that believes in what he is trying to do. And he isn't going to just cater to the reporters or cater to the media and their narratives. And
You know what though?
mhm,
I'm bored of this conversation though, Jack. And this is not aimed at you guys, but people said the same about Conte, the same about Jose, the same about Nuno to a degree. When are we just going to accept this is the way managers are? This is what they do. They have their style, they have their philosophy, and they're going to believe in it to the ends on earth. Especially when you've got managers that are coming to this football club where it's been replicated and successful elsewhere. Who are we to tell them they're wrong? And they're not certainly going to have us telling them they're wrong because they're going to look at Tottenham and go, hang on, you brought me here to change your fortunes, and now you're trying to tell me I'm wrong. I'm the one that knows what it takes to win. We have to understand this as fans.
yeah. Sebas Wolf saying, I put blame on Ange for the subs, but this is 100% on the players. The lack of responsibility from them was insane, and the lack of desire to win. The defending was also disgusting. I'd actually agree with Sebas Wolf's
Mm.
kind of summary there. Big up to Sebas. Hopefully you're keeping well this Monday. THFC Micah, we're going to get back into the Twitter, but like I said, everybody, if you want to stop us at any point, welcome to do so. Ask us a question. Feel free to give us an opinion or something that you want us to discuss. You can also support the channel with a super chat or by grabbing a membership. THFC Mike is saying, what does this man need to do to get 10 minutes at the end of a game? Yeah, poor Jed Spence at this stage. Yeah, I just think he probably needed to be given an opportunity, but it's just the life of Jed Spence. It's just the life of Jed
That's
Spence.
Do you know what? That's one of the frustrating things that I was sort of running over my head last night. As soon as Adoji got that yellow, or as soon as Doji made the mistake and the second goal came down his side, you have to make that change. You have to give Jed Spence that opportunity.
Yeah, and he seems very reluctant to do that, and I don't really know why because Jed Spence hasn't necessarily done anything wrong at this point in time. THFC Micah, remember that button
Do you know,
in
as
old
much as,
FIFA career
as
modes? That was a
yeah,
great button.
do you know, as much as sometimes you think my life would be better off without it, it's not.
Stefan saying, by definition, was yesterday's the most Spursy result ever. I can't think of a game that has fitted that term more literally ever. I'd argue Zagreb was probably more Spursy, to be honest. So there's been maybe other ones in the past that have been more Spursy, but it's definitely up there. It's definitely up there. Um, and Archie Gray's season saying players who have scored in 5 straight games. I think now it's 6 straight games. Mbappe can no longer join that list with the Brendan Johnson, Brendan Aldo, Paul O'Keefe. This was kind of an interesting back and forth, Dave. So I'd be curious if you kind of wanted to give your opinion on this. Um, Basically Super Spurs is saying, kind of, I guess, criticizing the narrative that this is all on Ange because you look at the defending here. There are only two, maybe even one attacker in the penalty area. And Romero, Pedro Porro, pretty much everybody involved here, they just leave Danny Welbeck completely open, on this cross. And how is that really on Ange? I think is the point that Super Spurs is trying to say, right? Romero should have this covered. He shouldn't have to be, struggling to defend Welbeck in this situation. But Paul O'Keefe kind of shot back and saying, I mean, obviously players are responsible for doing literally their own job, but the gaffer just stood shaking his head. He had the power to do something about it. The message sent was carry on. Next game, he'll pick Romero again. There's no repercussions. Not good. I don't know where I
Um,
stand on this because I think I slightly disagree with Paul because I think the end of the day, like that is more on the players. That isn't on Ange Postecoglou in this situation. But I also agree with the fact that what we brought up earlier, that Ange does tend to have this thing with being very, very loyal and very trusting of his players to see the game out. And this might have been a situation where that came back to bite him. So could be the case that both of them are right, both Paul O'Keefe and Super Spurs in this situation.
um,
Do you
Look,
disagree with one or the other?
I don't think you can blame Ange for that. You go back and look at it, right? We got caught against Newcastle from a throw-in. We switched off right from a throw-in.
Yeah.
Same thing there. We took a breather from a throw-in. That guy spun 3 Spurs players. There's 3 Spurs players standing there in a small circle. How's that Brighton player coming out of that? Ange sets them up during the week with what he wants to do. And for the large part, for mostly for the first half, it completely worked. But when you see a lack of effort, a lack of desire, and that's just literally 1 or 2 players coming in with the same hunger they did in the first half, the same intensity they did in the first half to take the ball off and they didn't do it. Then we doubled down by Bentancur pulling out of the challenge to a large degree as well, which then left the likes of Romero exposed. But also the organisation, when you've got 2 players in there unmarked, it comes down to simple communication. It comes down to your leaders on the football pitch, and that's what we really lacked at Tottenham Hotspur. If we went out there and we were completely outplayed by the opposition, I'd say, do you know what? That's full on tactical related. Whatever we worked on during the week did not come off. It did not work. But when it works for 45 minutes and we dominate them, and then some of the goals that we've conceded, and we can go back and watch them, we just didn't throw in any tackles whatsoever. We were so far off them. There was no press in that second half. And this is something we spoke about, Jack. When that press drops, we're so easy to play through. And I agree with Paul O'Keefe. Yes, Postecoglou has to realise that and haul players off. I think Postecoglou tried to explain it, that he left them out there for as long as he could to try and see who the leaders and that are gonna step up. But hopefully in future now he realizes you don't have them guys in the dressing room. It's now up to you to take control, up to you to take the reins, and up to you to try and make the difference. But I think we're at a dangerous place, Tottenham Hotspur, where we almost blame the manager for everything. Even if he did make subs and it didn't work, people go, that's on Ange, made the wrong subs, didn't know what subs to make. And it's sort of like, you know what I mean? We keep catching ourselves in a catch-22 situation. Well, Tottenham Hotspur, I think we really need to sort of divide up what is Ange Postecoglou's fault and what bears down on the players.
Yeah, and it's hard to be able to perfectly distinguish, but that is kind of, I think, what we're trying to do after a game like that. Vscard saying, I don't like the fans getting so mean about one loss. First half was good. They just fell asleep out there. It's Andrew's responsibility, though, to make sure it doesn't happen again, and we'll see what happens from here. Big ups, Vscard, and it's good to see you in the house. Good to see the Hotspur Hood as well. Good to see Daniel Harris, the other member of the Harris Army. Big up to you, my friend. John Bostich is in here as well. And then Rakdos Madness. Good to see you, Alan. Hopefully everything is okay with you, my friend. He's saying crazy fantasy league week. Well, we'll get you an update at some point on this week about how that went. And hopefully you had a good one, Alan. Ed Sweeting saying, I'm not saying Ange is wrong in his approach. I'm referring to his questioning by the media. You can't take too much from what he says post-match as he won't concede on any criticism. Yeah, and I think that's fair, with the fact that he will kind of show to be a bit stubborn in these situations because he doesn't technically owe the media really anything in times like that. King Huddle, good to see you in the house. He's saying the goals owed nothing to structural issues or to being torn apart, and everything to individual lack of focus and incompetence. It
Yeah.
doesn't move the dial on Anges by even a millimeter for me. Yeah, well, King Huddle showing his loyalty to the manager right now. DJ AK, good to see you in the house as well. Hopefully you're keeping okay, DJ AK, and really appreciate everybody that has joined the stream. Please like the stream. Please share it with anybody who might be looking for a bit of Spurs therapy at this moment in time. But we're going to keep this rolling. Poseidon saying that Udogie performance is genuinely one of the worst individual performances I've ever seen at Spurs. The likes of Longley and Dyer never played a game that bad. I'm being serious. Fine him a month's wages. Inexcusable. My head is effing gone. Terrible. Is this a bit over the top from Poseidon Dave? I would argue I
Look,
have seen some worse performances by Davinson Sanchez, by Eric Dyer, by Crew, and more. I mean, Udogie should not be holding his head high after that one, but to call it the worst ever, I don't know.
Look, it was a shocking performance. I would say, I would put it up there with a Dyer performance or a Sanchez performance in years gone by. The thing with Udogie, it's probably one in 2 years that he's been here for the large majority of it. Where he's really been that bad, that costly. With them guys, it was nearly every single game. So I think there's a huge disparity to be had there.
Yeah. And Kaylee Davis with a super chat. Big up to you, Kaylee. Hopefully you're okay this morning, waking up in sunny Seattle. Once again, like I said, any place that I've seen to come back from, from New York, bringing the sun back with me. It's been a pretty lovely fall that we've been enjoying here. And she's saying, hey, Jack, let me know if you want to meet up. Come on, you Spurs. Thank you for the support, Kaylee. And I think I said this before, but please, please, please just send me a message on Twitter, Jack_Kanicki, and I should be able to respond to you there. I'm pretty sure I have message, requests. I can look at the message requests, make sure that you haven't sent anything. From what I can tell, you haven't. But feel free to message me on Twitter. We can get things set up. I can grab your number. Or you can also email Dave if you haven't emailed Dave already, and we can get that set up. But really appreciate you for showing support to the channel, and hopefully you're all right this Monday morning, Kaylee. But thank you for even being interested to want to meet in person if you haven't gotten sick of me already at this stage. So pick up Kaylee, and hopefully you're keeping well this Monday. Like I said, lovely weather in Seattle, despite the mood with Spurs. Aaron Lennon saying a bad day at the office. Yeah, Aaron Lennon is definitely right on that one. Dave Tickner saying, who would have seen this at halftime? Asks Alan Smith, every Spurs fan who's ever lived for a start. Simon Humane saying, look at this. Solanke goes to press, but nobody backing him up, no pressure on the ball. Brighton allowed to just go through us while our attack in our midfield watches while jogging. I think he goes on to say, yes, Udogie makes a mistake, but it's symptom, not the diagnosis. Did you kind of see that, Dave, where the press was a bit lackluster, kind of disjointed, in that second half? I think that is one of the core issues of what went wrong.
It's something I spoke about right from the off. I said we left our legs in the dressing room. I said we've come out with a lack of intensity,
Mm-hmm.
lack of pressure on the ball. It was one of my biggest pulls out from the watch along yesterday. All the way through the second half, I was highlighting it. And for me, that was the big difference. In the first half, Solanke went, Johnson went, Kulusevski went, Madison went, Werner went. In the second half, Solanke went, and everyone else was retreating back behind them. And when you do that to a team against Brighton, who, doing certain patterns of playing, can play this one-touch football, it's going to absolutely kill you once you ease control. We'll wait for them to give us back the ball, and we'll go at them and score goals. And look, I'm not going to go as far as Simon and give Udogie a free pass. At the end of the day, we didn't press. Fine. Well, it's not fine, but Udogie still had the opportunity to be able to clear it and still keep a 2-0 clean sheet, and he didn't.
Yeah. And I think Dave is right that he did point out that a lot of times in that second half, it just felt like the press was just very disjointed and definitely not in sync. And Spurs players, some of them are slacking off, while others were still trying to bring the energy, but doesn't really work. If you have some guys giving their all and then others, are not, you still leave yourself very open. If that's the case, you have to be all in it together. Came from the lane saying this Kulusevski times Johnson link up. Dave, before, cast your mind back to that first half, they were saucing together, Kulusevski and Brendan Johnson. They were actually probably the brightest spark in that first half, those two.
No, they were absolutely brilliant in the first half. I mean, Johnson, I didn't know he had it in him. The amount of time he flicked the ball around the corner first time for Kulusevski just to run onto. And, but Jack, this is something that I've highlighted, in previous weeks, this partnership. Kulusevski in that number 10 driving through the middle sucks bodies in, which then frees Johnson just to make them runs, and Kulusevski feeds them in. It is a partnership that is starting to blossom, and hopefully it can continue to bear fruits across the season.
Yeah. And Luca THFC saying Tottenham once Solanke is playing. I think they're just showing the hold up play and everything, from Spurs and just sort of the fact that he was bringing everything together. He did have a very good game, Solanke, despite us, losing at the end, David. He did show that his hold up play can really bring things together, and he can, bring more chances to the wingers that he could bring them into the game. He can play them in behind. And I think Solanke at the end of the day had a sadly a very maybe it will be an unnoticed performance because at the end of the day we lost, but he did have, two very, very good moments that led to our two goals.
No, he didn't. You know what? One part of his game that I absolutely love from Solanke Jack is, and it makes me giggle every time I see it because takes me back to when everyone said Harry Kane won't fit Postecoglou's system, is when Solanke gets the ball in, gets turned, and plays Werner Johnson in behind. That
Yeah.
is exactly what Harry Kane used to do. And in fact, Harry Kane was 10 times better at it. So I
Mhm.
just have a chuckle to myself when people go to me, when people used to say to me, Harry Kane won't fit the system. And, now we're dealing with a BTEC Harry Kane, but it's okay. He's doing the business right now. Let's see if he continues.
Yeah, and he's doing very similar movements and very similar build-up play and hold-up play to that of Harry Kane. So it shows that Ange Postecoglou does enjoy and does like utilizing a striker like that. Phil P, good to see you in the house. Hopefully
Big up,
everything's okay with you. He's saying tactical term, Destiny shit the bed. Yeah, exactly. Tactical term on that one. Felon82 said it a few times. Udogie is not the player Spurs fans have built him up to be. Is people going a little harsh on Udogie, Dave, or is that okay to say?
No, look, I think people are, they can question him. I think, even before his injury last year, I think the 5 games before his injury, I would counter Jack. He was poor enough, but I would say for the vast majority, he has locked up that left hand side for, you know, um, but I think he's at that point now where, he's settled in at Tottenham, settled into the Premier League, and now we're just waiting for him to sort of find that next level to his game and really kick on. I think he's got all the attributes to become a top left back in terms of causing problems defensively and going forward. But there's still that youngness in him, that rashness, that naivety, the amount of free kicks that he gives away, swiping at the ball there. If he's a couple of years old, he probably shows a bit more composure and just clears that. So, I
Yeah.
think what we're seeing now is probably just that youthfulness side to him still that he needs to eradicate from his game.
DJAK saying they came out second half thinking they had 3 points already and were on international break mode. King Hada
Yeah.
saying we seemed devoid of energy in the second half. Bentacore was running on empties and Madison was struggling out there. I definitely agree with both of you guys on that one. Good to see Mark Cook, member of the Mark Army, saying it was a different 11 second half, wasn't it? Second half was shocking. I just didn't recognize the team. I definitely agree with you there, Marky. Simon Domain saying shit show, all mental too. Came out in the second with an attitude of the game already has been done. So disappointing. I think that's a great way to summarize it by Simon. Carly saying, I'm once again asking if ADHD medication is banned substance because if not, Spurs call me immediately. I think she's referring to Romero here. Dave, just completely switching off. And, Romero, Dave, I mean, yes, and Udogi in this situation doesn't do well. Bentancur doesn't do well. You also do have to look at Romero once again, right? Just has no idea of the run of Welbeck and has no idea he's even behind him, or maybe he does know that he's there but switches off and forgets. It's pretty inexplicable from Romero.
It is, especially because if I'm correct, there was a warning sign early late in the first
Yeah,
half, or at some point in the first half, where Welbeck ran off him.
yeah.
Romero just sort of let him run on sight. He didn't know where he was. So, to do it second time is criminal. Should be a
No,
crime. I would fine him wages for that, actually.
No, exactly right. There was another moment that, Romero let him go and actually got away with it. You're right. THFC Mike is saying a positive we can take from the game is Dominic Solanke's performance. Runs endlessly to win the ball back and links up the play like a certain someone who played for Spurs in the past. He'll prove that he was worth his hefty fee this season. Well, I think Dave said a version of that just now, so maybe we could have gotten to that tweet a little bit earlier. Patty Power saying it's just who we are, mate. That was that situation where Basuma was the only one back, I think, from that corner kick situation, and that was a little nerve
Honestly,
wracking.
that's another thing, actually, now that's been highlighted. That's jogged my memory. I think one of their goals came from a poor set piece routine. I think there was 2 or 3 times after that they break on us from a set piece routine. I mean, either what we're practicing during the week in terms of set pieces, we're not pulling off in matches, or the way we're set up on attacking set pieces in terms of our defensive structure is a fucking huge problem and needs to be looked at.
Yeah. And Simon Humain saying focusing on mistakes from Udogi or late subs from Ange kind of misses the point for me. Go look at Brighton's two first goals, zero pressure on the ball, huge space for them to play through and around us. Players got lazy and stopped playing our football. That's why we lost, in my opinion. I think it's a combination of individual errors and really individually poor defending, but also kind of what Simon Humain has said there when it comes to concentration levels and mentality. Football Confidential saying they managed to capture the precise moment Ange Postecoglou realized that what it's like to be a Tottenham fan. He definitely looked perplexed and he definitely looked confused. Prof Spurs saying, is it me or do Spurs players tend to lose their heads before international break? I think this is becoming a regularity at this point. 20 minutes apart, says Patty Power. Yeah, we were buzzing, and then all of a sudden we just got punched in the mouth. THFC Mike is saying one bad game does not define us. I think he's talking about destiny. And then Glory saying another Romero moment. Enough with this world class nonsense. Dave, I mean, I believe Romero can be a world class defender, but it is situations like this season that has left the Spurs fan base a bit divided on the guy, whether he does have the I guess, the ability to stay fully switched on for 90 minutes. And that is a crucial component of being a very good defender is the guy that just doesn't give you that inch, never makes a mistake at any moment. And probably it's more of the thing of defenders of the past because lots of times they really were put under the cosh, constantly put under pressure, and they had to deal with danger on a regular basis. But Romero sometimes has this tendency to get a bit lazy or switch off in these moments. And in order to be a world class defender, you can't let that happen.
Um, is Romero world class? Yes. I think, he has all the facets, in his game, pulled together and all on form. He's world class. Is he a world class player going through a poor spell of form right now? Yes.
Mm, that's a good distinction to make.
And by the
Craig,
way,
yeah,
just quickly, by the way, why is Van de Ven getting away with it as well? He was fucking atrocious yesterday. He was useless on the ball. He turned like a fucking Arctic lorry yesterday when he was on the ball. And he also got done,
yeah, he
a
got done a
couple of
few
times.
times. Yeah, especially one-on-one
And
moments.
I
He
really
did.
like Van de Ven. I love Van de Ven.
Yeah, I know. I also think Van de Ven is a world-class player, but he did also get spun a few times. I think you're right. Um, Craig is this is I thought this was wild to even suggest this, but just thought I'd throw it in there just to melt your brain, Dave. Craig saying Højbjerg comes on in the 60th minute and Spurs wouldn't lose that match. Interesting that he says that. Wonder if it's more of a mentality thing than it really is, what Højbjerg would have done individually. But he is a guy that is one of those that, does stay switched on for the most part, does try to maintain those concentration levels and that, kind of focus mentality for the entire 90 minutes. So he could technically have been useful, but I bet that's going to make a lot of people blow up in the chat because knowing what
Misunderstood.
Hoiberg's was, this is always my favorite meme and a very useful meme in any situation, but definitely being a Spurs fan. Sophie, with this one saying, oh boy, I'm excited to watch my favorite team play. We're winning the league. I'm going to oh, okay, we lost. Yeah, that's definitely the history of Spurs in a game. Billy saying, "I swear to God, these motherfuckers lose before every international break." Has anyone done the data on this, or is my severe nervous breakdown efficient evidence? Dave,
It
I
was
did look
confirmed
at the
earlier.
stats on it. In like 43 games before international break, I think Spurs have won 21 times. They've drawn 10 times and they've lost 12 times. So before international break, that's an average of like 1.43 points or something like per game. It does show that we have this tendency to collapse before international break.
Yeah, we do. And I don't know. I can't quite put my finger on it. All it
You
comes
know,
back to is, when Harry Kane and Conte left and Jose to a certain extent all said, there's no pressure on people to win at Tottenham Hotspur.
yeah. And also, Sania saying first half, second half fun turned into a funeral. And
Yeah,
Cody Mack saying solemn reminder that as a Spurs supporter, you are never safe from Tottenham
yeah.
Hotspur. Aaron Lennon, Johnson again, he was enjoying it. He was enjoying it last night. Aaron Lennon, Simon Humain saying, well, I guess I'm just going to have to add that up to one of the trauma banks, taking my pent up anger and disappointment out on those that I hold near and dear. Yeah, our poor families, our poor friends after games like this. Billy saying, hate tweets like this. What's the good in comparing one of our best ever players to Harry Kane? I thought this one would piss you off, Dave.
That's a
Following
good
in the
one.
footsteps of a
That's a good
Spurs
one.
legend, Brennan Johnson, it's the first player to score in 6 consecutive appearances for Spurs in all competitions since Harry Kane did it in 2019. And so Billy's comment
Hate,
was, "What's the good in
hate,
comparing one of our best players ever to Harry Kane?"
hate tweet. That's brilliant. Big up, Billy. He's so good.
Sue saying we have to sit on that result for 2 weeks. Fantastic. Yep, that's what Dave and I will sadly have to do. Spurs Express Postacoglu has called today's result the worst one since he arrived at the club. Might not be wrong. Patty Power saying football is just so much better when both teams refuse to do any defending whatsoever. I think
Yeah,
he's referring
it
to our
is.
game. It is more entertaining, and I think Dave and I were calling out for that more during the Euros. We just want to see more teams play like Ange Postacoglu's. Tottenham Maskey saying, "No Tottenham for 2 weeks. The chains have been broken. We are released. We are free, everybody." And Billy saying, "Being a Spurs fan is like having a terminal disease when you don't even go to die at the end." Cody Mack saying, "All the good vibes and momentum flushed down the drain with the classic capitulation. Horrendous second half display. Zagreb
Yeah.
levels." Patty saying, "Looking back at yesterday, it proves we have no leaders in that team. We have no one that dictates play, no one that will waste time or fire in a dirty tackle when needed. Like teams in the past, we are too nice and honest to the opposition, and it will never change." Do you agree with Patty or disagree?
I fully agree with everything up to the last part because Romero was doing that and everyone asked him to stop doing it. So it's sort
Yeah.
of like, we could sit there and cry and moan that we want these things, but when they do it, he's rash, he's reckless, he's this, he's that. But sometimes what he was doing was leaving a dirty tackle in when needed to spice it up or, slow down the game and stuff like that. So I agree with it to a large extent, but when it's like the manager, right? Everyone goes, he's saying all the wrong things. I want him to say the things I want to hear. But when Conte did, everyone said sack them off the back of it anyway. So it's sort of like we sit here and say we want these things, but do we really?
Yeah.
You know?
Stephen
And that's where
Wilson.
I think, the Spurs fan base sometimes have to, and it's hard because you're dealing with millions of people and everyone have different opinions. But I just wish someone could come and say, look, these are the core things we want,
Yeah.
so that then we can all just sing off the same hymn sheet rather than,
Yeah.
because I'm sick of it by going, oh, we need this, but then when we have it, he's reckless, he's this. You know what I mean? It just drives
No.
me
Yeah.
mad.
Totally. Anthony Rose is in the house. Good to see you, Anthony. Hopefully you're okay, my friend. Stefan Wilson has joined the chat as well. Big up to you, Stefan, and anybody else that is joining in. Neil G, Paul123. Really appreciate you guys for the support as well as leftovers. Um, and Patty Power. This was the I think the last one, Dave, and it's just the classic. One of my favorite memes of all time from Patty Power was the third defeat of the season for Tottenham with the club in 19th. Luckily, their fans can console themselves at our center. If you've seen that video before, the Spurs center. Have you seen this?
No. Oh, yes, 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 yes. I have.
Yeah, with
They're
all the
brilliant.
Arsenal, all the
Brilliant.
Arsenal
Yeah.
memes and everything like that. It's one of the best videos from Patty Power. And even when we're on the ends of defeat, they do make me chuckle every now and again. I do think they have a good sense of humor with most situations, but they are much better at making fun of Man United than they are making fun of Spurs,
Yeah.
in my opinion. But Dave, that is the end. We have come to it. You made it through. Congratulations, my friend. We suffered through it, but everybody, let us know. If you enjoyed the
Oh,
Twitter reacts as live or as pre-record. I'm not too sure if you might have a strong opinion after a game like that one. It probably would have been better to ask after a win, after a fun win, and then you could have probably given us a more concrete answer. But let us know, everybody, in the comments, if you do prefer these as a live show or as a pre-record. From what we could tell from the last live stream was that a decent majority of you, not like a strong majority, but a decent majority of you did seem to prefer these live. Be happy to do them live if necessary, but we can also do them pre-recorded if that's what some of you guys prefer. I also saw some personal comments underneath the video that did say that a lot of people did prefer this as a pre-record, so we would like to take on any opinions, any information that you guys want to give us on that one. Kaylee,
thank
if you're still listening, feel free, follow me on Twitter, send me a message there. Would love to meet up over this international break, take our minds off of Tottenham Hotspur, also get to know you as a Spurs fan. And if you can for us, everybody, smash the
you.
like button. Consider becoming a member if you want to support the channel any further. But Dave, am I missing anything?
Yeah, and guys, if there's stuff like you see that you want to throw into Twitter reacts or you want us to react to, feel free to get onto Twitter at the Irish Y or at Jack Kanicki, and we'll throw it in there. So don't be afraid to get
Yeah.
involved. Every bit of content we do is to try and be engaging with as many people as we can. That's what it's all about. So feel free to get involved there, and really appreciate all the support on these Twitter reacts, guys.
Yeah. Regular Gamer has suggested something interesting. He's saying mix it up. Sometimes the situation needs live, sometimes the situation needs pre record. I wonder if it's after a win, if pre record might be more interesting for you guys. It's just something to wake up to in the morning. But then
Mm,
after a loss, maybe it's better just to do it
therapy.
live so that we can, talk, rant, give each other therapy, that type of thing, for us. And might be just a more casual, relaxed type vibe like we're doing now if it's after a loss. So maybe we do just sort of mix things up. Big up to King Huddle, though. Big up to Ed Sweeting. Always a hard show to do after a bad loss. It definitely was. This one wasn't
Yeah,
easy. Phil P saying we need humor in these dark moments. Love the live, but love anything. Thanks, Phil P, and thank you for the
we
support, my
love you,
man.
man.
And then DG has joined the chat as well. Good to see you, DG. Hopefully everything is okay with you, my friend. But I think we'll leave you guys there. Fan show will be later in the week. I'm not sure if we've decided whether it's Tuesday or Wednesday, but do look out for it. Likely on one of those days if you want to join us for the fan show. Take your mind off of the Brighton performance. Look on into the West Ham and future games after that. Let us know your thoughts on Ange Postecoglou, all that good stuff. If you are a fan show or an elite member, please join us for that one. But we will see you next time, everybody. Come on, you Spurs.